Alright, so last night I decided to have a bunch of my mates over, and of course we ended up playing pool, listening to house music, but one of the main reason the boys were mostly over is because we were watching Collingwood taking on Brisbane in the preliminary final, and holy crap, like a lot of things happened that night. Like I got sent a video of one of my mates actually doing the motorcycle dance, whatever you call it, with Catman, which is hilarious. He was basically just emoting on our other mate who goes for Hawthorn, so that was pretty funny. But, you know, some other things were Brisbane managed to beat Collingwood with the 807 injuries that they have, which has now gotten me to this point where I feel like I have to issue an apology to those who watched my video saying Collingwood are guaranteed to make the 2025 AFL Grand Final. It was one of the few videos I've ever made where I've legitimately had a controversial call that I thought was a lock, but I thought Collingwood were a lock to make the grand final last night. I thought that a lot of stuff would have to go wrong for Collingwood to lose, and I mean, a lot of stuff did go wrong. Like, there were a lot of times where I was watching this Collingwood team, and I think a lot of people are pointing the finger towards the age and how Collingwood weren't quick enough because of their age to catch a lot of what Brisbane were doing. The two-way running wasn't good enough to be able to stop Brisbane's offensive momentum. But in reality, I don't even know if I agree with that. I think we saw a team that, even though they had a lot of injuries last night in Brisbane, and I mean, they ended up missing Jared Berry, you know, Lachie Neale, of course, Eric Hipwood, a couple other players here and there. You just saw a team that was far more skilled and far better, win the game. And I didn't actually think that's where it was going to go. I thought Collingwood were actually going to get the win just because of some of the players who were playing for Brisbane that I was like, I don't know if they should be playing. You know, Big O to me I thought he was going to come in a little bit underdone. He was playing a lot of VFL, but when he came back, he didn't look like how he was. Marshall and Gallup, I didn't think were AFL ready because, you know, they were so young. And besides last game, Gallup hadn't really done anything in any of the games he played. Marshall was still finding his feet, but both of those guys were incredible last night. Yeah, I mean, especially Gallup. I think he was the highest ranked player on the ground or something, which is insane to think. But we got now this Brisbane Lions team. They're in the grand final and they're taking on Geelong, who were able to beat Hawthorn, and they were able to beat Hawthorn pretty convincingly. That was the game where you saw a team in Geelong who were just far better than Hawthorn. They were far better than Hawthorn. They were far more skilled. They were the better team with better players. That is exactly what you saw. And yeah, I do think we've got the two best teams in the competition going up against each other, which you don't get to say all the time. You know, there are some grand finals where you're like, oh, should that team really be in there? But this year, definitely, like, you've got Geelong, who've been, I'd say, probably the best team for the majority of the year. I know Collingwood were first, but I think Geelong, they gave up some silly games. I think they were the best team majority of the year. And you got Brisbane, who I'd argue have the best team in the competition. They just have a couple of injuries right now, and I mean, it's crazy to think that Brisbane are going into their third grand final in a row, and whether they win or lose, it won't truly matter because next year they're bringing in Oscar Allen, Sam Draper, probably Jordan Ridley, and I don't know why his name's not coming to me at the top of my head, but they've got a guy who's like ranked in the top 5, Daniel Annable, that's it. He's ranked in the top 5 in the upcoming draft, and he's an academy player. So they're going to bring in 4 of those guys who will probably all play a lot of games next year. So that is insane, I think. But at the end of the day, yeah, we've got the two best teams in it. We got Geelong taking on Brisbane in front of Snoop Doggy Dogg, and this is going to be hopefully a great match. I have been seeing people come out and about and saying that Brisbane have overachieved so far, you know, because of the injuries that they have. They're going to come into the grand final and they're going to pull a GWS and get torn apart by Geelong because Geelong are the complete team and there's nothing wrong with them at the moment. But to that, I kind of disagree with. I think the reason GWS got smashed all those years ago was, yes, they had injuries, but they were also an extremely young team at the time, who I'd argue were actually better a couple years later when they lost to Collingwood in that prelim. But you had that GWS team who had injuries, they were really young, and they also just shit the bed on grand final day. To put it as simply as you possibly could, they well and truly shit the bed on grand final day. There wasn't a player for them who really had a good game. I think it may have been Tim Taranto, who was probably their best, and he joined Richmond literally a couple of years later. So you look at that. I don't think Brisbane are going to do that. Obviously, you take away the shit the bed factor. They've been in 2 grand finals in a row. One where they absolutely smashed Sydney, and one where they just dropped short to Collingwood in a game that they probably should have won. Like, that was a very unfortunate grand final loss a couple of years ago. But now you're looking at a situation where this is their 3rd grand final in a row. They're going to have, like, I think it's like 18 players or something like that, or maybe even more, who have played in a grand final. Like, even a couple guys who didn't play in their last grand final, like the Big O, played in the 2023 one. So they've got the grand final experience and they want a premiership. They've only got like a couple guys like Marshall and Gallup off the top of my head who haven't played in a grand final. Again, there's some slight things that you may be a little bit concerned about. Lachie Neale is expected, I think, to come in for Jared Berry. Jared Berry popped his shoulder out. I don't think he'll play, but it's also like Lachie Neale, he got injured pretty badly a couple weeks ago, but they're really pushing for him to play. They are also, he's also been running, I think he did 8K in the, just running around doing high speed performances the other day at training. He said in an interview he's going to train this whole week and whole block out to, of course, go and, make his case for the grand final. I am a little bit scared for them that Lachie Neale is going to come in really underdone, and he again, touch wood, he doesn't, but he could get injured pretty early. I do wonder how Chris Fagan is going to go about this. Is he going to say, look, Neale, you shouldn't be playing this game? For starters, he should not be playing this game. When you think about it, with the injury he had, he should not be playing this game. I wonder if he's going to have the conversation with him and say, look, there's a young guy in there in the wings who should be playing. There's a guy like Bruce Reveal who has been the sub for so many games this year, who could start in the grand final and be a good story. He had a really good game against Collingwood as well. There's a lot of situations like that where I wonder they could do. Again, I don't think they're going to do this, but I actually saw someone say they should have Neale as the sub. Let Neale only come on with a quarter or 2 left, because if he plays the full game out, he might get injured. Having him as a sub, he could come on and just use his ability there. But again, I don't think they'll do that. I don't even think that would work. You can't have an injured guy come on when everyone's already warmed up and already game ready. Lachie Neale, it would take way too long for him to find the pace of the game, which we've seen some players struggle with when they come on as a sub this year. I think Giath in the last couple games, there were times where he struggled to find the pace of the game when he came on as a sub. The pace of the game in the finals is a big thing. You don't want an injured guy coming on and trying to find the pace. I don't really know. But at the end of the day, Geelong, they're just a complete team. They look really good. They have Jeremy Cameron and Shannon Neale, who you could argue are 2 top 5 key forwards in the game at the moment. I think Shannon Neale is such a good player. Like, the fact he's kicked 50 goals this year as a second option, no one is talking about it enough. Like, do you know how hard it is to kick 50 goals as a second option? Like, we really haven't seen that much in the last couple of years, and he's come out and he's done it behind Jeremy Cameron, who is so targeted by, his players to kick it to him. Shannon Neale has kicked 50. He looks really great. The reason I say he could be like a top 5 key forward is not just because of that, but the way he actually lets Cameron still flourish and be the best forward in the game. That's a hard thing to do. Not many players have been able to do that with their other key forwards. But it is insane thing that they've got those 2 guys. Their backline, they will be without Tom Stewart due to concussion. That will be a little bit of a miss and not too great for them, but I don't know. I think they can replace him. And look, I honestly think if I had to tip a team here, I'm going to go Geelong. I think Geelong could win it. I also think, though, that, I don't know why, but Zach Bailey, one of my mates, said he thinks he could win the Norm, win or lose. And I think that's very possible as well. Like, Zach Bailey's been a freak as of late, and if he comes out and has 25 and kicks a couple goals again, that could be insane. For Geelong, no, you could just go with the easy ones of Bailey Smith or Max Holmes. I also think, though, you know, someone different on Geelong could very well win it. Like, if an Ollie Dempsey gets off the chain on the wing, geez, watch out. That could be a very good, you know, good shout. But yeah, I think it is going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see how Snoop Dogg goes as well, because I feel like Snoop Dogg, obviously he's an artist, but he's also a performer. Like, Snoop Dogg is one of the biggest people in the media right now, and I honestly think some people would prefer Snoop Dogg just did 5 minutes of cracking jokes and talking shit on the stage. I'd be freaking happy with that as well. I'm very interested to see how this grand final is going to go, but I will be tipping Geelong. I might give the Norm Smith to Ollie Dempsey or Zach Bailey as my underrated calls. I think that's where I think they're going to go with this. I think Ollie Dempsey could have a freakish game. But yeah, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all those AFL news, you know, AFL content and more. My gaming/movie channel will be linked down below. Comment your thoughts and opinions on who you think's going to win the grand final, the Norm Smith, all of the above. Go follow me on Instagram as well if you haven't already. But yeah, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.